The sky turned a deep shade of green as thunder cracked through the clouds. The jungle trees hissed, their wide leaves folding back as if preparing for war. Strange birds flew away, screaming warnings. Every living thing on the planet knew what was coming, except for him. Captain Reed stood on the mossy ridge, sweat still clinging to his bare shoulders from the climb. He looked up. The sky was beautiful in its own terrifying way. Dark clouds churned like smoke, and bright flashes of electric blue ran through them like veins. He had never seen anything like it. Not on Earth, not on any of the outposts, not in any military briefing. Behind him, soft footsteps raced through the mud. She burst from the foliage, panting, tail whipping behind her. Her skin shimmered under the strange sky. She looked like a ghost made of stars. "Get inside," she shouted, her voice full of panic. "You have to move, now, the rain. It's not water, it burns, it eats, it kills." Reed turned to her slowly. She was drenched already, her face streaked with fear, not from the rain, but for him. Her body shook as she reached for his arm, trying to pull him back into the forest. "I said move," she screamed. "Why aren't you afraid?" Reed didn't move. A drop hit his shoulder, then another. She gasped, expecting screams, pain, melting skin. Instead, he smiled. "It's warm," he said, like he was standing under a summer shower back on Earth. "Feels like steam. That's all." "No," she cried. "It's acid. It melts bone. My people built shelters for this. It wiped out entire clans." Another drop hit him, then 5, then 10. The downpour began, but Reed didn't scream. He stood tall, water rolling down his chest and arms. His skin didn't blister, it didn't smoke. He raised his arms like he was embracing the storm, and then he laughed. A full, deep laugh like he had just heard a good joke. She stumbled, back in disbelief. No one had ever survived this. Not even the armored beasts of the jungle. And this human was smiling. "What are you?" she whispered. "Human," he said with pride. "From a place called Earth." She looked at his body, again, strong, scarred, yet untouched by the deadly rain. Her heart raced. This wasn't just resistance, this was immunity. The stories her people told of the Death Worlders were true. She stepped closer, unsure whether to fear him or follow him. "My people will not believe this," she said. "Then, let's show them," he answered. She studied his face. There was no arrogance in his eyes, only calm, power without cruelty, confidence without threat. And for the first time, she saw something terrifying and beautiful all at once. He wasn't just surviving the rain. He was dominating it. Suddenly the rain started to eat away at the trees nearby. Leaves dissolved, bark smoked, even stones hissed under its touch. But not him. He looked untouched by the wrath of the planet itself. She couldn't look away. Her people called this storm the Devourer. It came twice a year, and each time it erased something from the land. A creature, a path, a village. But this man, he stood in it like it was nothing. "Why are you here?" she asked. "I came for peace," he replied, "but I'll fight if I must." Something changed in her eyes. The fear became something else, respect, maybe even trust. She had warned him with her full heart, and instead of fleeing, he had stood his ground and proven something deeper than courage. As the jungle around them melted, and the sky screamed with fury, she stepped forward and stood under the rain beside him. Her skin began to smoke, but his hand reached out and touched her shoulder, and the smoke stopped. She looked down at her shoulder where his hand had touched. The smoke had stopped the moment his skin made contact. Her eyes widened. She moved her hand slowly toward her other shoulder, and when the acid rain touched it, it sizzled. Pain flared up. But where his hand had rested, nothing. He watched her, silently, not with pride but with concern. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I don't understand," she whispered. "You stopped it, just by touching me." Reed didn't answer. He wasn't sure he had the answer. Maybe it was his body chemistry. Maybe something about Earth had changed him. Maybe it was something deeper, but the rain didn't hurt him, and when he touched her, it didn't hurt her either. She looked up at the sky still pouring down poison and took a shaky breath. No one can do this. No one has ever done this. Reed stepped closer to her, shielding her from the rain. What do they call this storm again? The Devourer, she replied. It cleanses the land. It kills everything. But not me, he said. She stared at him. You could lead armies with that gift. He shook his head. I didn't come here to lead. I came because my shuttle crashed. I didn't mean to land here. She laughed softly, a short breath of disbelief. You fell from the sky and walked into death like it was a warm bath. He smiled. You saved me. You tried to pull me away. That means something. They both stood under the rain, surrounded by hissing steam and the smell of burning earth. Around them, the jungle fell apart. Trees collapsed. Plants turned to sludge. But they stood untouched, wrapped in silence and falling acid. Suddenly, a screech echoed through the jungle. Not from an animal. It was mechanical, a shrieking engine. She turned sharply. Hunters. They come during the Devourer. Nothing survives. Out here except them. What do they hunt? He asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the trees. You're not safe anymore. They'll want you. For what? You survived the rain, she said. They'll see you as a weapon, or a prize. They ran through the smoking jungle, her tail swaying behind her, his boots splashing through acidic puddles that sizzled under him but left no mark. Her skin was already reddened where his touch had faded, but she didn't stop. The screeching sound grew louder. Metal shapes moved between the trees, not ships, not drones, riders. They looked like giant insect hybrids mounted by beings in armor that shimmered like oil. Red lights pulsed from their masks. Their mounts didn't burn from the rain. Their suits kept them protected. But they noticed something unusual. The two figures running in the open. One of them wasn't wearing armor. One of them wasn't melting. Reed looked back. One of the riders raised a weapon. The air around it warped. Get down, he shouted, pulling her into a hollow log, just as the beam sliced through a tree trunk beside them. The tree fell, sizzling into the mud. She pressed her back against the wet wood. They'll keep coming. They want you. Then let's give them a reason to be afraid, Reed growled. She blinked at him. You would fight them? I already survived a planet trying to kill me. What's a few hunters? She couldn't stop the strange smile forming on her lips. Reed crawled out from the log and stood tall in the clearing. The acid rain soaked his body again, glistening like armor. The hunters paused, as if confused. One of them dismounted. She watched from the shadows, heart pounding. The hunter stepped forward. Reed didn't move. The hunter raised his weapon, and Reed smiled. The hunter took a cautious step forward, weapon humming with energy. Its red visor reflected the falling rain and the image of the human standing tall in the open. Reed didn't flinch. He stared straight ahead, arms loose, eyes calm. The rain poured down around them, boiling where it hit the jungle but sliding harmlessly off his skin. The hunter lowered the weapon slightly, confused. This wasn't normal. The Devourer killed everything it touched, but this human was untouched. The other riders stayed back, watching in silence. Reed could feel their doubt. Their fear was starting to grow. Another step. The hunter aimed again. From the log, the alien girl gripped a sharp vine root like a blade, ready to jump in. But Reed raised his hand behind him, stopping her. His body glowed slightly now, not from any light, just strength. Something deep, something strange. Even he didn't know where it came from. The hunter fired. The energy blast flew straight at Reed's chest. It hit. And then, nothing. The blast fizzled against his skin, like hitting stone with light. No burns, no blood. Just a quiet flash. Then, steam. Reed looked down at his chest, then back up at the hunter. You done? He said calmly. The hunter took a step back. Reed stepped forward. The rain roared louder, like the planet itself was watching. Reed moved closer, his footsteps hissing in the mud. The hunter raised its weapon again, but the fear in its body was clear. This was no ordinary creature. This was something the storm could not touch. One of the other hunters shouted something, in a strange metallic language. The group started pulling back, their mounts screeching and turning in the mist. Only the first one stayed. It was proud, or maybe desperate. Reed stopped just a few feet away. "I don't want to hurt you," he said, "but I'm not running." The hunter hesitated. Then, in one sharp motion, it lunged. Reed caught its wrist mid-strike. The hunter's armor hissed under his grip. Smoke rose from the contact. Reed's skin didn't burn, but the metal did. The hunter screamed through its mask and dropped the weapon. Reed stepped in and pushed. The hunter flew backward, crashing into the mud. Its armor cracked. The others didn't wait. They fled into the trees, vanishing into the storm. The jungle was silent again. The girl emerged slowly, eyes wide. "You didn't just survive the rain," she whispered. "You faced down the storm's riders." Reed turned to her, breathing steady. "They'll be back," she nodded. "And they'll bring more. Then we find out what they're afraid of," he said. She hesitated, then stepped closer. I think you are what they fear." He looked into her glowing eyes. "What are they exactly?" "Ravagers," she said. "Outsiders. They wear machines to survive here. They burn everything. My people hide when the Devourer comes because that's when the Ravagers move freely. No one fights them. They've ruled this place for too long," he said. "Maybe it's time. Someone showed them they're not invincible." She stared at him, unsure whether to smile or warn him. No one had ever challenged the Ravagers, not even the forest gods her people whispered about in stories. Still, something inside her believed him. Reed picked up the fallen weapon the hunter left behind. It was strange, shaped like a bone and glowing blue. He turned it over in his hand, then slung it over his shoulder. "We need to move," he said. "They'll call for more." She nodded. "I know a place. My people will hide me, but not you. They don't trust outsiders." "Then I'll earn it," Reed said. "Or I'll make them see why they should." The girl looked at him for a moment longer. "Your name?" she asked. "Reed," he answered. "I'm Vetra." They walked deeper into the jungle together, one untouched by the storm, the other still marked by it. But now, something had changed. The Ravagers had seen a human stand in acid rain and laugh, and the forest had not claimed him. Something old had awakened. Vetra led Reed through a narrow path hidden beneath massive leaf arches. The jungle hissed and steamed around them as the Devourer storm continued to fall. Everything sizzled in its path, except the trail Reed walked. Where he stepped, the mud hardened and the acid didn't bite. Even the nearby plants leaned toward him, their burning stopped just by his presence. Vetra noticed it. She watched in silence as flowers that would normally curl up in pain stayed open near him. The jungle was changing around this human, as if it was curious or afraid. "You're changing the forest," she whispered. Reed kept walking. "I'm just trying to survive." They reached a thick wall of stone wrapped in moss and vines. Vetra placed her hand on a hidden panel, and a glowing sigil lit up under her palm. A crack opened in the rock, revealing a narrow passage. The stone door closed behind them with a hiss. The tunnel inside was dry, lit by soft glowing fungi and crystals embedded in the walls. The silence was heavy. Deeper in, voices echoed, low, cautious, and quick. Vetra moved ahead, calling out in her language. Moments later, 3 figures stepped into the light. They were like her, blue-skinned, long-tailed, bioluminescent, but older. One wore ceremonial armor made of hardened shell and bone. The other 2 held long spears shaped like carved lightning. When they saw Reed, they tensed. "He's with me," Vetra said quickly. "He saved me." The elder stepped forward, eyes narrowed. "He is human." He walked through the Devourer. It didn't hurt him. The three looked at each other, disbelief written across their faces. "Show them," Vetra said. Reed raised his arm and wiped a streak of the still falling rain from his skin. The drops rolled off like water, leaving no mark, no pain. He let a few drops fall to the ground, and even the stone floor didn't hiss where he stood. The elder stepped closer, inspecting him like a relic from legend. "This is not possible," the elder whispered. "Only the ancients could resist the planet's fury." "I'm not an ancient," Reed replied, "just a man from Earth." "Earth," one of the guards said softly. "The death world." The room fell silent. Vetra nodded. "He saved me from the Ravagers, fought one of them alone. Their weapon did nothing to him." "They will come again," the elder said. "And they will come with greater fire." "Then help me stop them," Reed said. The elder turned away. "You don't know what you ask. We are survivors, not warriors." "Then why do you carry weapons?" Reed asked. The elder paused. "To protect the last of our kind, not to start wars." Vetra stepped forward. "But what if we don't start it? What if it's already begun?" The elder looked back at her. Then at Reed. "You may stay," he said, "but you will not be worshipped, and you will not lead." "I didn't come here for that," Reed said, "but I'll fight if you're not willing." The elder nodded slowly, then disappeared into the deeper tunnels. Later that night, Vetra brought food, strange fruit and roasted roots. She sat beside Reed near a small glowing fire made of crystals. Neither spoke at first. Then she asked, "Do all humans survive acid like that?" Reed shook his head. "No, most would burn. I don't know why I didn't." "Maybe your body adapted. Maybe this world chose you." "I don't think worlds choose," he said. "But you changed something. The jungle felt it. My people felt it." Reed stared into the soft firelight. "Then maybe I'm here for a reason." Vetra leaned back against the stone. "Tomorrow the Ravagers will return. We have no army." Reed looked up. "Then we become one." The next morning the acid rain had stopped. Steam rose from the jungle floor, and the air was thick with the sharp scent of burned leaves and melted bark. The Devourer had passed, but it left the land scarred. Trees looked like bones, and the ground was spotted with holes. Inside the stone shelter, Reed stood facing a group of Vetra's people. Their eyes were full of questions and quiet fear. Some held weapons, others tools. A few children peeked out from behind the older ones. They had never seen a human before, and now they were staring at one who had walked through death like it was nothing. Vetra stood beside him, arms crossed, voice firm. "The Ravagers saw what he can do. They will come again, this time with more." "We should run," someone said from the back. "They will chase us," replied another. "They always do." "They're not gods," Reed said. "They're just cowards hiding behind armor. That's why they fear me. I showed them their machines can fail." "They have numbers," the elder said. "You have strength. But strength alone is not enough." "Then teach me what you know," Reed answered. "Teach me the land, the traps, the paths, and I'll teach you how to stand." The room fell silent. Then the elder motioned to one of the younger warriors. "Take him." The next hours were spent in the jungle. Vetra and the warrior, Kale, led Reed through secret paths, roots that curved like bridges, vines that could snap shut like jaws. Kale showed him how to listen for air shifts, where the Ravagers sent drones. Vetra taught him where to place his steps to avoid the ground that sizzled even after the storm. In return, Reed showed them how to take apart the fallen Ravager weapon. He removed a power core and placed it inside a vine snare. When Kale stepped on it by mistake, the trap shot upward with blinding speed, knocking a thick branch into the air. Kale stared in shock. "You turned their weapon into a trap." "We use what they bring," Reed said. Back in the shelter, Reed stood before a wall of stone and began carving. Using the sharp edge of the Ravager's blade, he drew plans, positions, blind spots, where to ambush. Vetra translated for him, explaining to the villagers how each move would delay or weaken the enemy. Children watched from the corners, wide-eyed. That night, Vetra brought him to a chamber deeper underground. Inside, ancient symbols glowed faintly on the walls. They looked like stars and animals, twisted in dance. "This is where we remember the old ones," she said. "Before the Ravagers, before the hiding." Reed walked past the images. One carving showed a figure with light in his hands, standing tall among flames. Another showed hunters fleeing before him. Vetra stepped beside him. "We thought they were myths." "Maybe they were," Reed replied. "Or maybe your ancestors were waiting for someone to remind you of who you were." She looked at him. "You believe in destiny?" "I believe in moments," he said. "And this one feels important." Outside, the jungle grew quiet, but in the distance, a low hum echoed. Ships. Vetra's eyes snapped wide. "They're here." Reed turned, grabbed his gear, and walked quickly toward the surface. "We have hours," Kyle said, waiting at the entrance. "Maybe less." "Then we make them count," Reed replied. As the village prepared, Reed stood at the edge of the jungle. Steam rose from the ground again, thick and warm. The planet was waking up, but so were its people. He closed his eyes, feeling the land beneath him. And for the first time, it felt like it breathed with him. The ground trembled. A deep rumble rolled through the jungle like a growl from the planet's core. Trees shivered, animals vanished. The Ravagers were coming. Vetra stood on the ridge, with Reed and Kale. Below them, the jungle opened into a wide basin of blackened soil and steaming roots. This was where the fight would begin. The entrance to her people's last refuge sat just behind them. If the Ravagers broke through here, there would be nowhere else to run. "They've never come this close," she said. "They've never feared what's waiting," Reed replied. He checked the traps. The first wave would trigger motion vines, laced with broken Ravager parts. Blades turned into scatter spikes. The second wave would fall into mud pits electrified by power cores from disabled drones. Reed had placed them himself, using scraps from their enemies like puzzle pieces. Vetra watched him work, moving with quiet focus. He didn't look like a soldier anymore. He looked like a force. "I used to think your kind were fragile," she said softly. Reed smiled. "We are. Until we need not to be." Kale called out, "Lights in the sky." They all looked up. 3 black ships cut through the clouds, silent, sleek, and hungry. They hovered, scanning the ground with beams of red light. Then the ramps opened. Dozens of Ravagers dropped from the sky, landing with heavy crunches. The earth hissed beneath their metal boots. The hunters had arrived. Reed took position behind the largest tree, his stolen Ravager weapon ready. Vetra held her spear, tight, heart-pounding. Kale melted into the shadows with a group of young warriors waiting for the signal. Reed raised his hand. "Wait." The Ravagers moved in rows, weapons drawn. Their masks glowed. They scanned for movement. One stepped too far, triggering a vine under its foot. A loud crack shot through the jungle as the first trap snapped. A sharpened branch charged with Ravager energy blasted forward and pierced its armor. The Ravager dropped. Silence followed. Then confusion. Another stepped back and triggered a pit. The ground gave way, and 3 fell into black mud that crackled with stolen energy. Screams echoed. Now, Reed gave the signal. The jungle exploded. Spears flew from the trees. Fire crystals ignited in bursts of white and green. Traps snapped from the branches, sending metal shards flying in every direction. The Ravagers, trained for direct combat, found themselves blind in this living maze. Reed moved like lightning, charging straight into their flank. His weapon pulsed with stolen power, every shot clean and loud. He struck one Ravager with the butt of the gun, then spun and dropped another with a shot to the chest. They fired back. One beam grazed his leg. He hissed in pain but didn't stop. The acid in the ground didn't touch him. The steam wrapped around him like a shield. Vetra fought beside him, She moved with speed and fury, her spear dancing through the air. She wasn't the same frightened girl who had warned him about the rain. She was fire now. Kale's warriors ambushed from behind, using every trap Reed taught them. Even the children threw crystal flares that blinded the hunters long enough to escape. The Ravagers were losing ground. Their leader, larger than the rest, stepped forward. He raised a massive cannon and fired at Reed. The blast knocked him back into a tree, bark cracking behind his shoulders. For a moment, everything spun. Vetra screamed his name, but then Reed stood up. Smoke curled off his chest. His shirt burned away, skin blackened but unbroken. His eyes locked on the leader, and he walked forward, not ran, walked. The Ravager fired again. Reed caught the beam with his bare hand. The jungle stopped moving. Even the enemy froze. Reed crushed the weapon in his grip and threw it aside. He didn't smile this time. He charged. The ground shook as Reed slammed into the Ravager leader. The force of his charge lifted the armored giant off its feet and sent both of them crashing into a steaming rock wall. Sparks burst from the Ravager's cracked chest plate. It tried to rise, but Reed didn't let it. His hands grabbed the edge of the mask, and with one hard pull, he tore the helmet free. The face underneath wasn't what he expected. Not human, not alien like Vetra. It was twisted, gray-skinned, eyes burning, yellow with veins of machinery running across its skull, more machine than flesh. The Ravager snarled, but Reed stared without fear. "You hide behind armor because your body's already dead," he said. The Ravager lunged, claws out. Reed caught its wrist, twisted, and drove his knee into its chest. Metal cracked louder this time. The creature screamed. Its free hand reached for its belt, activating a blade of pure plasma. Reed ducked under the swing and grabbed the weapon by the hilt. The heat should have melted his hand, but his grip held. The blade flickered, then died. He drove his fist into the Ravager's throat, and it collapsed in the mud. All around them, the jungle was alive with battle. Vetra's people were no longer just survivors. They fought like warriors. Kyle led groups through the steam, striking Ravagers from behind, disappearing before they could counter. Vetra held her ground beside the young ones. She defended the wounded, blocking blasts with scavenged shields and striking with deadly precision. Her eyes searched the smoke, always looking for him. When Reed rose again through the mist, holding the broken Ravager leader by the arm, the entire battlefield froze. He threw the body down in front of the remaining hunters. "Your leader's done," Reed said. "Leave. Or stay and die next." The Ravagers hesitated. They looked at each other. For the first time, they didn't move forward. Some lowered their weapons. Others took a step back. The fear was real now. Reed picked up the plasma blade and reactivated it. The bright light cast sharp shadows across the trees. Behind him, Vetra walked forward, her voice loud and firm. "This is our world. You came here during the storms because you thought we were weak, because we hid, but no more." Kyle raised his spear. "We don't hide anymore." The jungle echoed with war cries from the treetop warriors. Flames danced through the trees. The Ravagers turned and began to retreat, some dragging the wounded, others rushing toward their ships. Reed didn't chase. He stood still, breathing heavily, muscles shaking from the fight, but he remained standing. When the last Ravager disappeared into the sky, silence returned. Then came the cheers. Vetra reached him first. She didn't say anything at first, just placed her hand on his arm and looked at him with something deeper than thanks. "You did it," she said softly. "We did," he replied. Kale approached with his warriors. "The Devourer passed, and we're still here." The elder stepped forward from the shelter's edge. He looked at Reed, at the fallen battlefield, then back at his people. "You brought fire to a forgotten people," the elder said. "You reminded us of what we once were." Reed shook his head. "I didn't bring anything, I just stopped running." The people gathered around them. Children looked at Reed not with fear but with wide-eyed wonder. Some reached out to touch his arm to see if the stories were true. Vetra watched them. They'll tell this story for generations. Reed smiled, just a little. Let's make sure it ends the right way. She nodded. Then tomorrow, we rebuild. Reed looked up at the night sky. The stars were clearer now, the storm finally gone. He didn't know how long he would stay. Maybe he was never meant to leave, because something had changed. Not just in them, but in him too. The smoke had cleared. The ground still steamed from broken traps and scorched roots, but the silence now felt peaceful. Where once there had been fear, now there was life returning. Birds began to chirp again in the distance. Strange vines curled toward the light. The jungle was healing. Reed stood at the edge of the basin where the battle had ended. The Ravager ship was gone, leaving only marks in the soil and pieces of scorched metal behind. He bent down, picked up a small shard of armor and studied it. It was cold now, powerless, like their fear. Behind him, the people of Vetra's clan worked together. They lifted the wounded, gathered the fallen, and cleaned what could be saved. Children helped carry food. Warriors stacked branches to build a new watchtower near the ridge. The hidden tribe had stepped into the open, no longer afraid of being seen. Vetra walked up the path with calm pride. Her arm was bandaged, her face streaked with mud, but her eyes were bright. She found Reed still staring at the sky. They haven't come back, she said. They won't. Not soon, he replied. She sat beside him on the rock. But they will return, won't they? Maybe. But next time they won't find us waiting to die. Vetra smiled. You say us now. Reed glanced at her. Seems right. The elder approached with a slow step, leaning on a staff made of carved crystal and rootwood. He looked at Reed, then at the land around them. We once believed no one could resist the Devourer, that the storm was a god's punishment, the elder said. But you walked through it, you fought the storm, and the hunters. I didn't come here to change anything, Reed said quietly. I just wanted to survive. And in surviving, you gave us a reason to rise. The elder offered him the staff. Reed looked at it but didn't take it. I don't need to. Lead, he said. You already do, Vetra whispered. Children gathered behind them, laughing as they chased glowing insects. Some still looked toward Reed like he was something out of legend. He stood and stretched, wincing slightly as the bruises reminded him he was still human, still breakable. Vetra, he said, what happens now? We build, she answered. We teach. We don't hide. There are other tribes. They need to know the Ravagers can bleed. Then I'll help. She raised an eyebrow. I thought you wanted to leave. He looked around at the jungle, the people, the sky. I did, he said. But this planet doesn't want me dead. That means something. She stood beside him, close but quiet. The wind carried the soft sound of drums from deeper within the caves. A celebration had started. For the first time in years, they had something to celebrate. You know, Vetra said with a playful smile, some of the elders believe you're not a man at all. They say you're the spirit of the rain sent to punish the hunters. Reed laughed. Do rain spirits get hungry? She chuckled. Come, before the young ones eat everything. They walked back down the trail together. Around them, lights glowed through the trees, not from fear but joy. The people gathered in circles, shared food, sang songs, and when Reed entered, they made room for him, not as a stranger but as one of their own. He had come from the sky. He had faced the storm. He had turned fear into fire. Now they would build a future, together. And in the heart of a world that once tried to kill him, the human finally found his place.